Magic and treasure. Welcome. I don't know what significance you yourself place on synchronicity. It's something I've always known about. I mean, it's something I was very aware of as a child, but maybe more so as an adult. It's something that maybe I've not been willing to admit. But it now seems to be becoming a more and more important part to my life. And over the last few weeks, treasure hunting keeps coming up. I've no idea why. I mean, as I say, it's synchronicity, so I just felt that I should create a vlog on it. But I've got to say that unlike most Western magicians, it's not an area that I'm particularly interested in. Maybe it's because I see myself as a mystic rather than a magician, and I see treasure really, along with alchemy, as metaphors for finding God rather than the physical treasure. Treasure hunting. I mean, prior to networks of commercial banks and secure places to store one's wealth, there was a necessary tradition of burying treasure. This was particularly prevalent during troubled times such as invasion, and given that many lost their lives during these invasions, there's still buried treasure all over the world. Traditionally, such treasure belongs to the king or queen and can only be hunted with a royal permit. Indeed, royalty across Europe would employ their own treasure hunters. Even today in the UK, it's declared hoard, or if it's declared hoard, in other words, if it's important enough, it's declared hoard, and it's owned by the Crown. Normally it's put in a museum. I don't think the Queen actually stores it in Windsor Castle, although the finder is given a reward for their effort. The Staffordshire hoard is the largest hoard of Anglo-Saxon gold and silver metalwork ever found. It consists of 4,600 items and metal fragments, amounting to about 5.1 kilograms of gold, 1.4 kilograms of silver, and some 3,500 pieces of garnet cloisonné jewellery, and it's valued at something like £3.3 million. The location of it was in the Anglo-Saxon Kingdom of Mercia, or what was the Anglo-Saxon Kingdom of Mercia. And it most likely it was deposited somewhere between 650 and 675. And it contains artifacts probably manufactured during the 6th and 7th centuries. It was actually discovered in 2009 in a field near Hammerwich in Staffordshire, which is very, very close to the ecclesiastical capital of Mercia, Lichfield, and not at all far from the king's capital in Tamworth. And these are all places that I know extremely well because of, they're a reasonable distance from where I'm from, but not that far. So I know all of these places extremely well. Magic and treasure hunting. There exists a long tradition of using magic to hunt for treasure. It's believed that one needs to enlist the help of a spirit to assist in finding the treasure. In the Western tradition, this all too often involves binding Solomonic demons. Although the use of magic for treasure hunting probably predates Solomon, and certainly predates the publication of the Lesser Keys of Solomon. It's also believed that many hidden treasures are protected by demons which hunters seek to negotiate with. Indeed, the curse of King Tutankhamun is an example of one such legend that I often refer to, particularly during my tarot readings. And the whole thing is a perennial theme, of course, in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Treasures can be often found in burial sites, especially in the megalithic long barrows. And so there may be spirits of the dead to deal with when unearthing these treasures. Another popular place is at Crossroads, which have, of course, they themselves have particular significance in the paranormal. But especially those that are marked with the cross are believed to be prime sites for buried treasure. I'm not entirely certain why marked with a cross. Do you know what I think it is? So that they could re-find it. But maybe there's something more to it than that. Now, traditionally, a divining rod is used to find treasure. It's supposedly made from a hazel twig harvested from a tree at night. And it's said that actually using a virginal child was best for divining treasure. I've already mentioned that my father was a diviner, a water diviner. And I'm not really questioning its potential effectiveness. As you know, I do this pendulum, and I don't put any store by it. My dad didn't put any store by being a water diviner. He just knew he could do it. He didn't have any theories. He just did it, and I just feel the same way about my pendulum. Indeed, if you think about metal detecting, I mean, yes, you can argue there's science behind it, but isn't it really just a possibly more effective method than our hazel twig? I'm not sure. The erupting root, which is probably moonwort, was also apparently used to lift treasure from the ground. Now, one of my heroes, Sir John Dee, and his assistant, Edward Kelly, who's certainly not one of my heroes, and not the most reliable of sources, and he did dupe Sir John Dee on a number of occasions, but they were also treasure hunters. Although apparently not at all effective at being so. It's said this is because they used angelic magic to find the treasure. Angels will only give up the treasure if it's for a good cause, if it's God's work. Hence the tradition of using the Solomonic demons to find treasure. He used magic to look for lost manuscripts for what he called the British Empire, a term that Sir John Dee actually invented. But what that really meant was Queen Elizabeth I. In 1582, Kelly returned from the village of Blockley, which was then in Worcestershire, but it's now in Gloucestershire. It's actually in the Cotswolds, right on the border, where he had family connections. And he returned with a vial of red powder, a scroll written in strange characters, and a book. Kelly claimed to have dug up these items on Northwick Hill above Blockley. The powder was the alchemical powder of projection, which Dee had been searching for, because it was ultimately used to transmute lead to gold. While the book was purportedly written by St. Dunstan, believed to have been a successful alchemist himself. The scroll took a long while for Dee to decode, but it turned out to have been written in coded Latin by two Danish princes, who recorded it where they buried their treasure, just before they were expelled from England. Do you know what I've just realised? That part of England was never under the control of the Vikings. Oh, you little wag, John Kelly, you little wag. The pair also worked on behalf of other European monarchs. For some reason, Venetians were thought to be the best treasure hunters. But failing your ability to hire a Venetian, priests and monks were commonly engaged, along with itinerant labourers to do the heavy work. St. Christopher and St. Corona were used to assist. even in summoning the demons and in binding them. The Ars Notoria Grimoire, which forms a part of the Lesser Keys of Solomon itself, was reputedly found by an unknown Englishman in Naples when digging for Virgil's tomb. He supposedly found it, but was forbidden from taking the bones of the poet. There's a tradition of Faustian pacts with, I was going to say the devil, but of course Faust, he calls him Mephistopheles, but Faustian pacts with the devil in treasure hunting. Indeed, many grimoires appeared with details on how to make such pacts when searching for treasure. The Hohenzollern Grimoire, named after the title page of Dr. Faustus, for example, was used in 1715 by a group of German treasure hunters. Two are said to have died when hunting one Christmas Eve while performing a ceremony, while subsequently those guarding their corpses were also killed. Touch Me Not, which its real name is Compendium Rosarium Totaris Artis Magicae, is a similar Faustian grimoire and believed to have originated in Austria around 1795. It includes the use of psychoactive herbs and necromancy. Indeed, it's quite a notorious book. Henry Bohemian, a convicted necromancer and treasure hunter, is believed to have authored the prayer book of King Władysław III of Poland, which contains prayers to be used for treasure hunting. Despite treasure still being found, slowly pirate treasure in the Caribbean and the Aztec and Spanish gold took over in the public's imagination. Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormons, was known to be a magical treasure hunter, following on in the footsteps of his father. He used blood sacrifice. We know about sheep and dogs in this hunting, although and they were common practices at the time. Whilst he did use a divining rod, what he used in the main was a peepstone. I believe that his nickname was Peepstone Joe, which helped him to see that which could not be identified using the naked eye. Indeed, there was a tradition of scrying mirrors being used when treasure hunting. However, it's claimed that he enlisted angels rather than demons in his work. Indeed, the golden plates that he found, which formed the Book of Mormon, are said to have been found using these treasure hunting methods. Indonesia's wealth. There's a long tradition of using magic to find what is supposedly Indonesia's lost wealth, and stories about this regularly appear even in the press today. Rather incredibly, my wife Made losing her mind through black magic also has a link to this treasure hunting. You see, Maddie had a part of Neo-Rorokidal in her from the time of her induction into Kejawen, and this began to come out with regularity when she was particularly troubled by black magic. Yeah, she started slipping momentarily into the Queen's persona, but at a Pa Ustad's house in Jember, she became Nero-Rorokidal in all her majesty. She was speaking in ancient Javanese and moving her hands and arms as though praying in a Buddhist or Hindu manner. I became disturbed when it was apparent that Nero-Rorokidal had gold in one breast and a diamond in the other, and Pa Ustad and his helper Hamid wanted these. My confusion about what was going on lasted for some 3 days. Now, I need to add that this was also at a time when we were suffering from, lead poisoning, and we were extremely confused. And, it took months to really overcome that confusion, but for 3 days I didn't know if I was dead or alive. But for 3 days, Pa Ustad kept on pressing Nero-Rorokidal for her diamonds and gold, whereas my wife Maddie was becoming extremely disturbed by this. Maddie later explained that Paostad had entered a Basugian pact with her as the victim, so a blood pact for money. This was the reason why he'd been praying in the forest. It was not to save Maddie's soul, but to capture it for himself. And I'd been paying him to do this. But Maddie's learning was also of a higher order than Paostad's, and he was unable to control her. Apparently he really did believe that she could access Nero-Orchidal's gold, hence the diamond and the gold in the breasts. When Paostad offered me, when offered the gold, Paostad was taking it simply for greed, whereas I'd been offered some, and I refused it, and apparently this would have killed Maddie. In fact, there was a large black spirit in the house which was assisting him to gain the money. But should he be successful, the spirit was going to kill his wife, and he was unaware. He thought it was going to kill Maddie. Recently in Semarang, so in Banten, there was a jellyfish kingdom sect where their queen, Aisha Tasuma Baduri Intan, claimed that she could access a bank account in Switzerland which contained all the treasures of Indonesia. An almost identical situation that my wife was encouraged to believe, although I don't think there was any connection, except this tradition. But maybe such stories have a more sinister reason linked to real events. With the fall of President Suharto and the concurrent financial crisis, it was brought on by problems with loans, including loans from donor organisations, which were ultimately US dollar denominated, which the rupiah had collapsed against. The loans become an impossible service. So private unsustainable debt became public debt, hampering economic growth for years, giving Indonesian companies a low credit rating and necessitating further loans from the IMF. The crisis resulted in the flow of capital from Indonesia to Singapore banks immediately prior to Suharto's deposal. In other words, the very people who'd exacerbated the crisis appeared to make the most money from it. But having some insider knowledge, and by having some insider knowledge, and some might say more than a smack of kleptocracy, passing on their responsibilities to Indonesia's already fragile tax base. So the upshot is that Indonesia's wealth is trapped in private bank accounts in Singapore, while its debt is held onshore, the sheer scale of which makes it unique in the world. Now this has created a dreadful deceit in Indonesia, the dreadful deceit that all Westerners are super rich, and that the West has stolen Indonesia's wealth, and that this is stored in Swiss bank accounts. Now, of course, there may be an element of truth in it, but you know, the wealth stolen by fellow Indonesians pales into insignificance. And this itself is a belief which permeates every aspect of Indonesia's business, social and political life. Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this vlog, and if you have, can you help me out a little? Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and then you'll be notified of future vlogs, but also hit the like button and make a comment, because these seem to be what determine the YouTube algorithm, and I'm being really punished by it. So whatever help I can get from you is so appreciated. It really is. When I started this, I was going to do it this section, the real magic of Java. I was going to issue maybe every 2-3 months. Now it's happening maybe every 2 or 3 days. So yeah, if you hit the bell, you'll hear about it. And thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Really heartfelt thanks.